everybody, the economy is fixed now. Is the economy really fixed? Are we in a situation to where things are great and we see a lot of good indicators that things are going well in our country? Or is there maybe something else going on? We have this article from Yahoo Finance. Consumer confidence rebounds for first time in 3 months. Consumer confidence unexpectedly rose in May, ending 3 straight months of declines as Americans cheered a resilient labor market. The latest index reading from the Conference Board was 102 above 97.5 in April and higher than the 96 economists surveyed by Bloomberg had expected. Consumers' assessment of current business conditions was slightly less positive than last month, Conference Board Chief Economic Dana Peterson said in the last release. However, the strong labor market continued to bolster consumers' confidence over assessment over the present situation. Views of current labor market conditions improved in May, as fewer respondents said jobs were hard to get. Now, I don't know, guys, what do you think? Do you think jobs are hard to get right now? Do you think that there'd be any point to having lots and lots of YouTube channels about jobs and employment if jobs were easy to get? Now, you know, I guess everything's always relative, of course, but I don't know. We'll unpack that in a little bit, but let's see what else they have to say. Peterson added, fewer consumers expected deterioration in future business conditions, job availability, and income, resulting in an increase in the expected index. All right. Fewer consumers expected deterioration in future business conditions, job availability, and income, resulting in an increase in the expected index. So people are basically saying things can't possibly get any worse, so therefore they must be getting better. So I guess I feel good because I don't think they can get any worse. And I think for the most part, that's what we're saying here, is we're saying we don't think things are going to get any worse because we're at rock bottom. And so I guess feel a little confident. Okay, so now that we kind of unpacked that a little bit. All right, so we have a fun little graph that they show here. We have index. Okay, so we got 100 here, and we're kind of hovering around the confidence here. We definitely see that confidence was pretty low, as you would expect, you know, in around 2008 and again in 2020. But I think in reality, what we could actually end up seeing here is we really should be seeing consumer confidence down here, down 2008 levels. Actually, we might have to reset this chart and put us in the negatives, because I have a feeling my pessimism level, I don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point it's going to happen, where our consumer confidence is not going to be measured any longer. And that's what's going to happen. We're not going to measure consumer confidence because it's going to plummet so low it would be in the negatives on this chart. And that's what I'm expecting to happen. Okay, let's keep reading. Just 13.5% of consumers says jobs were hard to get, down from 15.5 in April. I would like to know who those 13.5% are. I would say for the most part, jobs aren't necessarily hard to get, but it certainly was more difficult than it was 5 years ago. This comes as the economy has continued to show more resilience than many expected. While the unemployment rate ticked up slightly to 3.9 from 3.8% in April, it's been below 4% for 27 months, the longest stretch since the Vietnam War. Meanwhile, the number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits remains low, and various trackers of wage growth show workers are seeing pay increases above the rate of inflation. All right, I feel like I need a BS flag to throw here. One of the reasons the number of people filing for unemployment has gone down is because people quit trying. They quit trying to work, they quit getting fired, and they quit filing for unemployment. They just have given up. They just decide it's not worth the time, it's not worth the effort. And so people aren't going to them anymore. People aren't depending on the government anymore. People are not depending on Social Security like they used to. Mainly because they don't see any point. It doesn't help them. And while it's not a lot of people, it is happening right now. Now, we have this little statement here where it says, show workers are seeing pay increases above the rate of inflation. Okay, well, the last inflation right now, sits at, like they say, at 3.9, but inflation has gone up over 20% compared to where it was last year. Where did I have that? Did I still have that open? Okay, yeah. I mean, here we have an article from Finance Buzz that talks about the affordability of fast food. And we kind of go through, and here we go. Fast food price inflation since 2014. And I think we've all seen a little bit of variation of this. It's probably pretty close to what other people are posting in different places, but this is shown a little bit different of a way. Many prices outpaced the national inflation rate in every fast food. See, this is one of the lies here. We have inflation, 31% since 2014 is what they have here. And so the inflation since 2014, we can argue whether that's true or not, but we'll just go with it. 31% since 2014. And the prices of all these fast food have gone up. And so, we kind of look at this and we go, okay, let's just play a little game here. So, inflation has jumped quite a bit in the last 3 years, really. I mean, you kind of look at that. That was 10%. It's gone up a lot, 21% in the last 3 years. And so when you kind of think about it and you go, okay, well, that means inflation has gone up 21% in 3 years. That means salaries would have to keep up with that as well. And so I don't know, let's do a quick little calculation. And so when you think about it, over the last 3 years, to keep up with inflation, your wages had to keep up by 21% just to keep up with inflation. And so, I don't know, we're talking about if you had a $50,000 job before, you now be in the $60,000 area, kind of that sort of jump. And for the most part, I think there's certainly some validity to that. There have been a lot of jobs that were $50,000 a year jobs that are now 60. And so based off of this chart, we would have had to keep up by 21%. Has your, I don't know, just asking, over the last 2 years, we'll just use 3 years. Over the last 3 years, have your wages kept up with 21%? Have your wages gone up by 21% or more? Just curious. Okay, so let's go back. Still, elevated prices remain a key sticking point for consumers and help explain why confidence hasn't fully rebounded. Consumers cited prices, particularly those in food and groceries, as having the greatest impact on their view of the U.S. economy. Here we have inflation proves sticky to start 2024. Change in core PCE since 2018. With the stock market at record highs, the wealthiest Americans are the most upbeat about the state of the economy. Consumers making more than $100,000 a year expressed the largest rise in confidence among all income cohorts, per the Conference Board. On a 6-month rolling basis, confidence has been the highest among consumers under 35 years old who make more than $100,000 a year. So yeah, I mean, if you're under 35 years old and you're at this point making $100,000 a year, you're probably not going to feel too bad about your situation and probably feeling fairly good about your future. All right, so always the fun part about reading these articles is reading the comments, because I find it more insightful from the comments more than the actual article itself, because it's pretty much just the mainstream media says things are going well. That's usually a red flag, or at least a yellow flag, that things aren't going that great. Okay, so let's take a look at what the people have to say. What changed to make people think the economy is improving? Seriously, I haven't seen any reduction in inflationary prices on the consumer goods in my area at all. Then I'm sure what has changed. The Biden administration knows Joe will not win unless they start brainwashing the public that the economy is great. Notice it says young people making over $100,000 a year have the most confidence. Yes, sir. Still, elevated prices remain key consuming point, blah, blah, blah. The economy is so hot it needs elevated interest rates to cool it off. The Trump economy was on life support with zero interest rates and huge infusions of PPP loan forgiveness, stimulus, and credits. Inflation is 3% and unemployment is 2%. It doesn't get much better than this. If you are not thriving, you have to work harder. Stephen is pretty clearly one of the sheep who enjoy reading Yahoo Finance News. Yes, and David is correct here where he says, probably because most people don't equate the rate of inflation as year over year with increase in prices. Remember, inflation is cumulative, so the last 3 years of absurd inflation raised prices a lot. And now even a modest reduction in the rate of inflation is not noticeable because the basis of the newly inflated prices is already very high. You should probably consider moving to an area with better economic conditions. Much of the country is thriving. Any confidence would reflect the Trump poll numbers, which may indicate we all can get strong again and safe again. Hang in there. That is all. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, there's no guarantee that what Trump or any other politician is going to do is actually going to fix our issue. I mean, the reality is, regardless of who's in office, we're probably going to see a deep recession or a depression or some other issue because, you know, who the heck knows at this rate? We could be talking about complete economic collapse at this point, and it won't matter who the president is. Okay, yeah, more politics. Yeah, so we get a lot of comments about politics in here. And, you know, there certainly is a lot of that where politicians like to make their situation look good. So they like to keep and artificially keep gas prices low so it doesn't hurt their chances of getting elected. And that's just a sad state of affair that we're in right now in our country. To where, you know, I don't know, you just kind of say, well, why? Why are our prices suddenly getting better? Why are things getting good right before an election? That just seems to be too much of a coincidence, don't you think? So I guess it really comes down to, are things really this bad? Are things really falling apart? Do people really have confidence in our economy? And I realize it's not a huge uptick. It's just, you know, one indicator that maybe things are getting better. However, you know, obviously there's a lot of pessimism, and I've talked a lot about pessimism before, but I think in reality, it's just, we're in a recession. Nobody wants to talk about it. We're in some sort of economic strife, regardless of what name you want to give it, and people feel it. Now, are there people who are still succeeding, people who are still getting along? Yes. Is everybody feeling pretty good? No. So we definitely have a separation. We definitely have a collapse of the middle class. We have a lot of things going on. And these things have been going on for a lot of years. But for the most part, things are not getting better. They can't, no matter what numbers you provide, there's no way things are actually getting better at the moment. There's no way to actually feel that. It's just not reality. You know, and just to go through this a little bit further, we have, we have this article from February, so it's a little bit old, but we have a situation to where, and this came out, a couple months ago, where Americans' total credit debt reached a record high. So the amount of credit cards that people are using. Now understand, you don't use a credit card unless you say, oh man, I really want to buy something right now. I don't want to put it off. Or you say, I know for me, I've been in a situation to where I had to use credit cards to buy food. I had to buy groceries. I had to buy fuel. I ended up using credit cards when I shouldn't have, but I did it to keep the household going. And at the time, I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was the best solution I had for myself. But of course, in the end, over time, it just ends up biting me in the ass.